Welcome to week 4. This is probably my favorite week for a number of reasons. And yeah, excited to see so many faces. We are almost a week away from wrapping up. It seems like it's gone very quickly. So this is the flow for the next hour or so. We're going to be doing the Feynman technique. We're going to explore barriers to emotional fluidity. And then we're going to do an exercise that I call Somatic dialogos. And I will explain what all of that means in due course. But let's just dive right in. Richard Feynman. So I imagine most of you know how this goes by now, but the invitation is to choose person A. You'll be in groups of 3, and this person will describe what you've learned about what emotions are. So basically, like in your own words. Oh wow, there's a deer outside the window. What, in your own words, emotions are, how they can be kinks, and ways that they can be expressed in healthy ways. And as always, you're imagining that you're explaining to really curious 12-year-olds. And then B and C will pretend to be those 12-year-olds, listen really closely and ask questions, clarify, reflect back, share if there's something that they don't understand. Is that super clear? All right, Ocean, if you'd like to open up breakout rooms, and we'll see you back here in 5 minutes time. All right, well, pretty much everyone left it until the last possible moment to come back, which is always a good sign. Would anyone like to share some of what you talked about? Any of the metaphors, any of the ways you explained it, any insights that came through? If you'd like to raise your real virtual hand. Yes, Vikas, you're up.
Yeah, so lower the hand. So I would, when we're talking about emotions are like feelings you have in your body.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's a combination. It's a feeling you have in your body, then your interpretation of those physical, somatic, the visceral feelings. I think the 2 things in combination make the emotion. And then the other thing we were talking about was, I mean, this is I got from everything that you've shared with us. Really, that their purpose is either they pick you up or they slow you down, and neither is good or bad. It just depends on getting you to a more calm, balanced state. But if you're too far up, you'll need to come down sometimes. And if you're too far down, you need to come up.
Yeah, nice. Thank you. I guess I'd add that, I mean, for me, emotions are almost like flavors in a palette. Like it's not just like up and down is definitely one vector, but there's many different
Right. Yeah.
can be present as well.
Yeah, we talk. Yeah, there's many. Yeah, like you could be kind of sad, or you could be like really depressed. But like it's all a spectrum.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much. Pablo, coming in.
Hey all. An interesting question came up in the study group, and it's why is the intellect or language needed and able to map an emotion? And if that we don't have the words for it, then the sensations kind of like run under the radar, and we don't have the emotional granularity to pick up on it. And the metaphor that came up is just like on a computer screen, you have all the data, ones and zeros, but if there's no processing system making sense out of those ones and zeros and turning it into an image, then we can't really see anything. So the processing is needed to see the image, but if we keep processing the image eternally, then we won't have the ability to just appreciate it. And that's where dropping the language comes in handy, and just seeing the final image that's made up from the language.
Wow, that's beautiful. Do you want to write a paper on that, Pablo?
Yeah, once it came up, it was like, oh, that's a interesting way of connecting the different brains and how they are interacting with each other.
Interesting. It also, I think you were with us with Doug's call yesterday as well. Doug kind of used similar, like specific words, and said that applying the words can actually help to complete the experience in certain ways, which I thought was really fascinating as well.
Yeah,
Awesome.
so I wanted to share that.
Yeah, brilliant. Yanis, you're up.
Yeah, so it's like I use the metaphor of emotion, like emotion, energy in motion. Like emotion is a kind of energy, and it each has a distinct flavor, as you said, to mobilize you into action, into different kinds of action. And what's really important about emotions is you to stay with them and to actually be able to decipher the underlying meaning. And what I've read that was really profound is like emotions are the language your needs use to communicate with you. It's like, and I had thought of this idea that like no one can hear yourself but you, and you are the one responsible to decipher it and communicate. So like emotions are like notifications that yourself says and says, oh, look at this, and you have to open it to read it. And so if you don't do it, nobody else will do it for you. So that's why it's really important to have a relationship with your emotions, and to not kinking them actually is having a belief system that will stop emotion from being felt and acknowledged. And so it will just get twisted in other ways through behaviors that are not optimal for your communication and well-being.
Beautiful summary. Beautiful summary. It reminds me of a Twitter thread that I saw where someone was suggesting that someone could create a wearable that would like notify you and give you notifications of the exact like triggers that were coming up or the exact emotions. And it's like, this is basically what our interoceptive capacity gives us already. But many of us just aren't able to kind of tune into it. But who knows, like maybe having a device on your wrist would help people take it more seriously. Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much. All right, let's get a couple more. Diego, these are great, by the way.
Hey, Johnny. I have a question on this. I'm a little bit confused because like what I understood from last class content is you need to like fully feel the sensation and kind of like let the story go. But on the other side, my personal experience is like the sensations are, or the emotions are completed once I really like acknowledge what they're trying to tell me. So I'm confused. Like I see this as a dichotomy right now.
Yeah, it's a beautiful question. How do I answer this? I guess I'll just speak from my own experience, which is that in like when I was just beginning with this work, acknowledging, as you say, acknowledging like what the need was and acknowledging what it was trying to tell me, and actually crafting a story out of what was going on was essential, and it was very, very necessary. And with time, particularly through a lot of breathwork journeys, I found that the emotions would just move, they'd arise as sensations, and sometimes there wouldn't be any story or any memory associated at all. It was just like this incomplete reflex with associated sensations would arise, would be felt and completed, and I wouldn't even know what it was connected to. So my sense is that there are situations where really understanding the context is really important in order to then, maybe change your behavior, change actions, share with other people. And, sometimes it can be frustrating when like I've had these big emotional processes and I haven't known what they've been connected to. And I'm like, what the hell was that? Like, what just happened? And there's also something very freeing about it because there's no judgment. There's no like extra layer of like, this is good, this is bad, what this means. So yeah, I guess I just say that in the beginning, rewriting narratives, and particularly around like for me, there was a narrative around like feeling anger is bad. Like I thought I was bad when I felt or expressed anger, and like explicitly rewriting that and sharing that with other people was very helpful for me. And there's a time where you can get kind of looped in the stories and looped in the meanings, and that can be a way of holding back the flow of the emotions and the energy to actually be felt and completed. So it's this interesting dance, and I think it's a really good question. And I'd also be curious to hear other people's experience with this as well. But hopefully that gives a bit of context.
Yeah, that really helps. I understood it like maybe I'm like conceptualizing this a little bit, but it's like at the beginning, you're not able to like allow that emotion. So you are like kind of have a story to fulfill. And once you've allowed it, maybe it's easier to just go through the sensation without needing a story because you're already allowing emotion. But thank you.
Exactly. Yeah, that's really well put. Beautiful. Okay, let's go one more and then we'll move on. Lissa, hey there.
Hey, good to be here. You guys, I love this conversation. It's so interesting. So I think I defined emotions as like a sensation or a number of sensations in the body in reaction to an internal or external context that can be subconscious or conscious. And so my metaphor for what happens when you don't work with or process or express those emotions is what I call the 10-year therapy plan. So if you want to avoid the 10-year therapy plan, processing is good. And I really liked what Nicole shared in our group. You know, she said there are multiple ways of healthy expression of emotion. And I really like that because I think that's really true, and some are more helpful and appropriate in different situations. And the thing I loved the most was Max said, if you don't process emotions, they'll hunt you down. And that hit it on the head.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Oh, I love that so much. It reminds me of, this is a bit of a tangent, but my favorite story growing up as a kid was The Wizard of Earthsea. And Ged, who's the wizard, he loses this shadow out of his own arrogance when he's younger. And this shadow spends the entire like 4 books chasing him down and like harassing him and giving him shit. And eventually at some point he turns towards this shadow, his shadow, the one that he created, and names it. He calls it by his name. And there's this beautiful kind of integration. Sorry to ruin the book if you guys haven't read it, but yeah, that's great.
Thank you. I'm going to be reading that book. Thank you.
Oh, it's an absolute masterpiece. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I also want to read the quote that David shared from Ian McGilchrist, whose work is phenomenal. The quote is, "Emotion is inseparable from the body in which it is felt, and emotion is also the basis for our engagement with the world." Yeah, beautiful. And I would highly recommend Ian McGilchrist's work on the left and right hemispheres. His book is enormous and it's just spectacular. He has a number. The recent one is, there's The Divided Brain, and then the more recent one is split into 2 volumes. The name's escaping me right now, but it's fantastic. Okay, all right. Well, that was awesome. Mars in his emissary as well. Yes, exactly. Okay. All right. So this is something I wanted to explore as a group. Hopefully the phrase emotional fluidity now means something to you. And the question that I wanted to pose to you is, what are some barriers to emotional fluidity? And basically, in your lived experience, what gets in the way of our innate capacity to feel, express cleanly and in like an unkinked way? If you'd like to think about that and share what comes to mind in the chat. Avoiding feeling negative emotions, absolutely. Even the word negative emotions is interesting, actually. Like, are any emotions actually negative in a sense? Therapists use negative valence versus positive valence, but I like the idea that all emotions have gifts in a way. Fear, trying to manage emotions, yep, absolutely. Shame is a huge one. Childhood programming, stress, story around the emotion. Overload too much at once. Creating stories to explain the rise of emotions. That's a fantastic one. That is one that particularly those of us that like to live in our heads and our minds are very much prone to. Not taking the time because I'm too busy. Strength of sensation. Avoiding hurting other people. Fear of overwhelm. Lack of boundaries. Interesting one. Yeah. Yeah, these are great. These are really awesome. Living in the minds, agendas, tendency towards productivity as a virtue. Nice one. Yeah. Habitual behaviors that inhibit emotions from flowing freely. Absolutely. Someone's voice in our body that is not ours. Interesting one, Franzi. Yeah. Wow, these are fantastic. Okay, so I'm going to share a few that kind of came to mind for me. I think these are some like buckets or categories that many of your shares definitely fit into. Well, yeah, I just want to speak to a few of them, and then if you have questions around any of these, I'm happy to kind of double click and go deeper. And the first one is the bottomless pit. I think there's a fear, particularly for people who are just getting into this work, that like, you know, if I take the lid off, it's just going to be this endless like Pandora's box of pain and tears, and it never ends. Stuck in story, which many of you spoke to in the chat. Lack of permission, I think, is also a big one as well. And not only kind of like it might not be appropriate in a social context, but giving ourselves permission to feel certain things. I think that's a huge one. Feeling under-resourced, people mentioned stress, overwhelm, not having capacity at the time, excessive rumination. There's this phrase, I believe it's from Buddhism initially, but it's don't believe everything you think. And as soon as you start to kind of just notice your thoughts as a rising phenomena, kind of passing through consciousness and not being like facts or truth, there's a freedom in that as well. Safety, we've mentioned in this course quite a lot, the idea of like embodied safety, which you can create for yourself, also maybe created through a somatic practitioner, being in nature, places where there is that permission from the set and setting. What emotion? Feeling disconnected, lack of interoceptive capacity, could be due to stress, could be due to dorsal shutdown, programming, these kinds of things. Shame, which I think Yanis spoke to as well. Like, I am a bad person for feeling a certain way. And shame really is, it's an interesting one because I don't necessarily categorize it as an emotion. It's more of like it's like an inhibitor or a kind of a permanent kink in the hose, if you like, in certain contexts. And it has sensations of its own. Pain aversion, so ways in which we habitually numb ourselves, distract, drink alcohol, binge on things, and perceived weakness, which I think this is starting to shift in culture. I think people are starting to realize that vulnerability is necessary for courage in a way. But I think many of us, and myself included at times, fear of being judged by others for expressing emotion as it's perceived as weakness. So that's a few that come to mind. Any reflections, any questions on any of these, or anything else that comes to mind? Brad asked, list of core emotions listed anywhere. Does this exist or not? Good question. It's a very kind of hotly contested topic, and pretty much every neuroscientist, every practitioner will have their own different lists. So in the Q&A yesterday with Doug, he shared 9 core feelings that he's kind of mapped it down to in his research. Others say 7, others say 8, others say like in the 20s. So it really stems from the fact that there's no consensus on what an emotion even is or what a feeling even is. There's basically no consensus, and so I recommend working with whatever feels most helpful and whatever feels most useful. Yeah. And Franzi says, highly recommend creating your own set of core emotions based on personal somatic inquiry. That's beautiful. Yeah. Like, make this like your own list based on your own personal experience. Yeah. Yeah, great to hear, Yanis. That's awesome. The emotions wheel, yeah, that's very popular. There are plenty of barriers. Yeah, great. Any final reflections or questions? If you guys want to raise a hand or ask for clarification. Pablo, I sense that all of these are defense protection mechanisms. Yeah, they are in a way. They really are. They are strategies that we've learned in the past for keeping ourselves safe. And often they worked at the time. The question is whether or not they are useful moving forward and useful in the long term. If expressing emotions equals dangerous, once an emotion comes to the surface, our brain will work to suppress it, similar to a perceived threat. Yeah, that can be the case, particularly if we've had an experience where we expressed an emotion and then we were punished or made bad. You know, this is very common at school. Like kids that get angry are then sent into the corner and shamed, and that is one hell of a way to suppress anger in a child. Yanis, yeah.
So there is an element that I have discovered in a somatic course that I've talked about again, which is how important is the role of nutrition to whether I'm able to feel or not my emotions. I mean, so even if all the other factors do not apply, if I let's say and maybe that's in the resources, like if I drank coffee or have sugar in my blood, it's really hard for me to connect. It really takes me like I'm losing the game as long as the substance is inside my body. And so like there are foods that balance you, foods that activate you, and foods that depress you. And so it's like playing with nutrition and choosing the right kind of foods that help you just be more embodied than disembodied. It's really a huge thing for me.
Yeah, that's a really great point. And Marek Doyle spoke to this in the Q&A earlier this week to some degree. Nutrition is certainly not my area of expertise, but the way that I think about it is similar to the fact that we're constantly being shaped or tuned by our environment. Like, you know, the quality of light, the air quality, the sound that's coming through that is tuning our nervous system. The same is true of the food and the nutrition that we're taking in. So, for example, if someone has 3 double espressos in the morning, that is going to shoot up their adrenaline and their cortisol levels. It's going to reduce their capacity for interoception, and it's going to make it more likely that they don't feel or they repress emotions that come up, unless they have a very high caffeine tolerance. And then equally, people starting to take magnesium supplement with magnesium, for example, which is, I would recommend for really everyone. I think all of our food sources have lost a lot of their original magnesium content, and supplementing with full spectrum magnesium is very supportive for like relaxing the body and creating that sense of internal safety, which then allows some of the emotions to come through. So it is important, and it's something which I is just beyond the scope of my expertise. But I would really encourage people to do their own research. 2 people that I would recommend following for this. One is a guy called Grimhood. He's on Twitter. He also has a Patreon, and he has so many nutrition and supplement protocols. It's insane. And then Marek Doyle, who we did the Q&A with earlier this week, he combines polyvagal theory with personalized nutrition protocols, and he's superb. Yeah. But otherwise, this is, you know, it could be you could do a course in itself on Ayurvedic nutrition. There's 1,000 different ways of using nutrition as another lever for coming into greater nervous system regulation. But great question. Okay, awesome. All right, let us continue. Okay, so this is something that I made up quite recently. I call it somatic dialogos. And the intention of this exercise is to inquire deeply and to seek to understand our own and each other's internal experience. And it can really be very transformative to stay with a certain sensation for even a few moments beyond how long we normally would, particularly when we're being witnessed in this. I'll also add that this exercise is entirely optional. So if you would like to not participate and remain in the main room, just message Ocean beforehand and she'll take you out of the breakout rooms. So this is completely optional experience. A definition of dialogos, this is from John Vervaeke, who is one of the greatest living philosophers, in my opinion. He talks about dialogos is a dialogue that affords a reciprocal flow state, also found in sparring and jazz. And there's this kind of sense of emergence and sense making that comes through. So this is what the exercise is going to entail. I'd like you to recall a moment or a memory that has some faint emotional charge still associated. But the key thing here is that emotional charge is like, it's like a 2 or a 3 out of 10. Like, we're not going for like the 10 out of 10 kind of PTSD experience. The goal really is to attune to the more subtle sensations in this experience. So and the emotion, by the way, could have a positive or negative valence. So it could be something that evoked joy or reverence or gratitude, or it could be something that brought up frustration, brought up sadness, grief. And with this, don't overthink this bit. Just like tune into your body and then trust the first image or memory that comes to mind, and just work with that. And this is the way the exercise is going to go. So I'll take a bit of time to explain this, because it could be complex. So we'll be in groups of 2 pairs. You'll label each other A and B. That's the first thing. And then person A will begin to describe their scene or their memory whilst paying attention to their interoceptive landscape. And this is really key. So we're both speaking and sharing the story, and we're tuning in internally. And as soon as you notice some kind of sensation, some kind of shift in your in landscape, you stop the story and you hold up your hand and you say, "In my body, I notice." And you share exactly what you're experiencing. And person B then listens, and then they follow up with asking, "And what is that like for you? Is there any more?" And just invite them to continue sharing their somatic experience with the story kind of dropped. And from here, the dialogue kind of continues. Until, the person B can ask, what else is present? Does the sensation have like a temperature, a weight, a shape? And then stay with this, and it's until the point where it feels like it's complete, or there's no more sensations there, and then go back into the story until another sensation arises, excuse me. And if at any point, if this starts to feel kind of too intense, you can always just you can say the word red, or you can hold up your other hand or a fist and just take a moment to use the breathing tools that we have to ground, regulate. You could do some sighs, do some hums, and just kind of downshift if you start to feel like you're getting too activated. And then after 4 minutes, you'll see a note from us. We'll swap roles. A will become B, B will become A. You'll complete. And then at the end, you'll have a minute or 2 to debrief after those 4 minutes up. So hopefully this makes sense. Let's do a brief demo, Ocean, if you're up for this, demoing with me.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. So let's see. Okay, so you ready? Okay. So last weekend, I was packing our car for a road trip, and our puppy Lola was running around and playing outside, and I was putting one of the bags into the boot, into the trunk, and I heard the sound of a car horn in the main road. And I looked up and I saw that our puppy was like in the middle of the road. Okay, so in my body, I'm noticing there's like a tightness in my chest. There's like a sense of like panic. There's like fear present. There's like tightness around my chest. There's a constriction in my lower belly.
Is there any more?
Yeah, it feels like the sensation is like moving down into my almost like pelvic floor. There's like a contraction there. There's almost like a sense of like guilt mixed in with fear, I think. Feels like the sensation. It's kind of moving around. I feel my breath moving down into that space.
And what would it feel like to stay with that sense of guilt and shame?
Mm. Mm. Feels kind of swampy. Feels like it's, yeah. Mm. It was like a little bit of stuckness in my pelvis area. The breath feels a little bit constricted. Mm.
And what would it be like to stay with the constriction of the breath?
It feels like it's opening up a little bit. It's like a wave of relaxation just came through my body.
And what is that like for you?
Mm. I just had the image of holding Lola like in my arms, like she's okay. It's all okay. Nothing happened. Yeah, it feels like that's kind of like softening. It's kind of past. Yeah. So I'll pause there. Thank you, Ocean. That was great. Okay, so does everyone get a sense for what this exercise entails? Yeah, and really the key is, and the person B can also reflect this back, like often you'll see when someone might kind of go into their head and invite them to come back down into their body. Often there'll be this, like the awareness goes into the mind and then there's like a softening back down into the body. So that's the invitation, is to kind of come back in. Stephanie, yes.
Question about the exercise. So I noticed in the example at some point, Ocean, I think it was it Ocean? She said, how would it be to stay more with your breath or something like that? So that's a little bit different. Seems more like an invitation or directing to stay with sensation. And I wonder if we should play with that or not.
Yeah, great question. So I would actually recommend just not really leading with the questions and just allowing, inviting more of the experience to come through and not necessarily guiding. That might be appropriate, in a longer time frame, but we're just doing 5 minutes here. So I think just allow the person to share whatever's alive. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and also just trust your intuition with this as well. Just kind of drop into what feels right. Okay, well, in that case, Ocean, do you want to open up breakout rooms? All right, everyone, welcome back. I hope you had a beautiful, interesting, introspective experience. We're now going to engage in what I call the puppy protocol. This is a research-backed approach for co-regulating with cute puppy gifs. And as you're watching this, just take a deep breath, take a full breath in and sigh on the exhale. Look at the puppy. One more. Inhale in all the way. Move your body, stretch your arms out to the side. Maybe yawn, stretching your face. One more breath. Shake it out. Okay, well, hopefully that has returned you firmly to a state of ventral vagal. So we've just got a few minutes left. I want to be respectful of time for people that have to head off. So we're just going to go through a little bit of logistics, and then I'll stay on for reflections about that exercise and any questions that you guys have as well. So this is the checklist. I will be sending out the Friday email very shortly as well. Please do finish this week's podcast episodes if you haven't already. Share the snapshot from the exercise in 4.1. And big ask, use this weekend to carry out your Edge challenge and ideally share a brief story about it in Circle. If this feels overwhelming, just make it like wind it back, make it feel simple, make it be like a small thing, just something that feels like it's towards the edge of your comfort zone, and make it happen this weekend. The deadline for sharing is next Wednesday. We're giving away an Aura ring, a lifetime supply of mouth tape, and some Ra Optics blue blocking glasses for the most compelling shares. And this is just, there's a sense of like celebration in this as well. Some of the stories from the last cohort were very moving. People like really went above and beyond with this. So invitation to step into your edge this weekend. This final week is going to be on ritual and environment design. The new episodes are actually now live in Circle in the curriculum. The podcasts should be going live at some point today. And yeah, we're moving into our final week. So there we have it. We have 1 minute left. If you have to head off, please feel free to do so now. Maybe say goodbye in the chat, wave, and then for everyone else who's able to stay on, we will continue for reflections and questions. Okay. All right, bang on time. All right, yeah, thanks guys. Thanks, Melissa. Thanks, Lyle. Who has questions or reflections? Plenty of you. Great. All right, Brad, you're up.
Yeah, I just had a quick, quite a funny one to share. So in my one, I think I'm going to pronounce her name right. Hind was, she was traversing an ice scape in Greenland, and I was on a Zoom call. These were our examples, but our emotional response was almost exactly the same, which was an initial like fear, which manifested as like tightness in the shoulder and the neck. And then it moved into some shame, which moved kind of down the body into the lower kind of pits of the stomach. So I wonder if that's kind of a normal shame response, and if that's normal for people to transition from fear to shame, or is it just us?
Yeah, really interesting. Well, it's certainly very normal for emotions to kind of transition into other potentially very different ones. Often sadness and anger can be very paired and linked, like sadness will shift into anger and vice versa. Yeah, fear and shame, that's interesting. And sometimes it can also be a sense of shame, which then is almost like protecting us from feeling fear or feeling hurt. I think, honestly, there's no standard like way that this works. Some people start to notice patterns, and sometimes there can be definitely common threads. But yeah, it really is context and person dependent. But I think the key thing is to allow the sensations to shift and to move exactly as you described, and not get stuck in the story associated with the first thing that arises. Because often emotions will kind of crossfire or crosswire, and one will come, and it's almost like protecting us from the one that's a layer deep. Make sense? Cool. Okay. Awesome. Wow, lots of questions. Edward.
Hey, Johnny. Yeah, so I guess this is kind of a big-ish question. But as we go into all this, especially the emotional fluidity stuff and being more connected to your emotional system and your body, I feel like me and a lot of us it's so new to us. It's like we're starting from zero, like zero, just based on conditioning and like family and where we were from and all that. And yet it's so obvious that this is like the key to your well-being and your good relationships going forward. And so it's really overwhelming. And so I think it would be helpful to hear more about some, like you in particular, but anyone who has made that journey successfully. You were, like you said, the startup brain guy, and now you're doing so much better. So I don't know. I feel like it would be helpful to hear more about your journey. It's not all going to be in one question, but like, do you have a longer write-up of that somewhere? Can you say a little bit of that now and point us? Or maybe there can be a resource for where people who made a lot of progress can share in long form, because we need help. Like, it's scary. Yeah.
I really appreciate the question. Yeah, thank you for sharing. And in the beginning, I guess I just want to like reaffirm that it does, or it did for me at least, feel really overwhelming, and like there was just so much there, and there was like a sense of like confusion and lostness that I think was present for me in the beginning. In terms of resources and places that I've shared some of my story, there've been a couple of podcasts, and particularly the TEDx talk on grief that kind of shared some of the particularly the earlier part of my journey, where I went from feeling pretty much like numb from the neck down, like I said, into just realizing the beauty, I think, in a lot of these sensations and emotions. And then I think, like, honestly, the turning points for me were regular breathwork practice combined with meditation. That really helped, and spending a good amount of time journaling, meditating, and doing breathwork like really helped to just kind of build the interoceptive muscles and build the confidence in emotional fluidity. I think that was a big piece. And I did a training in Bali. This was with Breathwork Bali with a guy called Ed Dangerfield. And in these breathwork circles, you're kind of breathing with 10, 15 other people. And it's really miraculous in the sense of, in that environment, it's like the full spectrum of human emotion is welcome. And in like a 90-minute journey, you might hear people going into deep grief, anger, rage, shame, like literally the full spectrum. And for people that have sat in plant medicine ceremonies, it's a similar kind of sensation where like everything is welcome in that space. And I think spending time in that kind of like field creates a deeper sense of permission, in my experience, to go into these things which previously we haven't really had permission to go into. So I guess, like, to summarize, finding spaces where all of you, where the full spectrum of emotions are welcome. It could be a men's group space, could be one-on-one somatic therapy, could be breath work. Yeah, kind of like feel into what feels like right for you, what you feel drawn to. But I think that's kind of the key, is like being around other people in contexts where this isn't only welcomed, but it's like celebrated. It's like you're around other people that are kind of doing this work.
Yeah, and that bit of community there seems super important and really hard to find. It would be cool to have like a community that's all on that kind of path and can celebrate each other and point each other to, you know what I mean? Yeah, it's very
absolutely.
lacking.
I mean, that's what I'm hoping this community will become to some degree, and it's different being in person. There's this quality that comes alive. I'd also recommend, I've done a few Sacred Sons events for men in this space, and they hold beautiful space in large groups. They have something called an EMX. They're in Europe and America. I'd recommend checking those out as well. But yeah, thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Okay, wow, a lot of questions. Franzi, hey.
Hey guys, I wanted to say one thing to like the first question that we just had, and also maybe understand what you know about it. But in my work, we sort of like that delayering of emotions, of sort of like understanding like which emotion is, layered by which. We call that somatic coupling or uncoupling. I just had it in a session too, where someone felt a lot of like gratitude for her past, but at the same time felt a lot of like grief. And it was just sort of like, for her to understand that those two can be separate, that we can hold both of them at the same time, and that they can both be true, quote unquote, whatever that means. And so I think it's important, in my journey personally, it was really important to become really comfortable in witnessing myself in situations where I would feel multiple emotions, and being able to like allow all of them without becoming them, if that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense, right? Like the witnessing.
Beautifully put.
I feel like
Yep.
emotional fluidity is really about like starting to like witness emotions rather than becoming them.
And without disassociating. That's the other. Some people can be in the witness and they can be disassociated.
Right,
without
right,
feeling.
but more like I'm so glad you're adding that, like the curiosity piece, right? Just kind of like curiously engaging in that emotion, being like, huh, hello, you know, where are you coming from, right?
Right.
How old are you, right? Like you haven't been here in a while, it's something like that, right? So I don't know what your experience is with all of that, but that felt meaningful to it. And then I have one more to that. Whoever just spoke, I forgot your name, sorry, don't take it personally.
Edward, I think.
Yeah, Edward, thank you. Yeah, what is your experience with that, like sort of like understanding like the witnessing versus the becoming?
Yeah, it's a really fine line. I think the key thing is like I really like Joe Hudson's framework of view, and he uses this in the context of having conversations that create connection, but I think it really applies to this work as well. And for him, view stands for vulnerability, impartiality, empathy, and wonder. So the wonder is like the curiosity. It's like intense curiosity. It's like what's arising. The impartiality is you're not trying to change your experience. You're not trying to fix it. You're not trying to get through it. The empathy is this like sense of compassion. Like some people experience it around their heart as well, but it's like a real sense of like love, I guess. And the vulnerability is I almost use that interchangeably with courage as well. It's like I sometimes have a mantra of like I am willing. Like I say to myself like I am willing, or like this too, and it's like this like welcoming for whatever the experience is.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, so it's like a kind of like an orientation to what is arising, where you're not separated. You're not like in this passive witness where you're not feeling it, but you're also not wrapped up. And in the breathwork world, we can say people might go into like loops or like emotional loops or flooding, and that's where they like you said, they kind of become one with the emotion and they lose their sense of witnessing it, and then it just loops and loops and it never actually completes.
It's like trauma
it's a
cycles
very kind of
never
people just go like in a hamster wheel of tears.
Yeah.
Okay.
Beautiful. That's incredible. I didn't know about that framework, so that's really meaningful. And then on Edward, something that I recommend for everyone to like look into, and I think you're also aware of that, is like just the difference between liminal and liminoid spaces for personal transformation. That has really made a difference for me of like understanding of like where in liminoid spaces I can like really like almost like let go of like who I am, who I think I am, like just like sort of like my social persona, and really just sort of like have the opportunity to witness and experience and allow myself new possibilities of self. Whereas the liminal space oftentimes goes into like, it's like the person that goes to the gym to like transform himself, and everybody else in the gym is just sort of like, well, I'm just here for my 30-minute cardio, right? And it's sort of like you kind of expect more from that place, but it can't really give you that. Like, everybody just wants to do cardio and you really want to transform yourself entirely. So it's kind of like a mismatch of the space that you're in and the intention that you have, versus the liminoid space is exactly that. It's sort of like it matches your intention and people are willing to go there with you. And it's like, that's why like coaching or, one-on-one spaces can be also so meaningful, because it's like fully focused on you. So just
interesting. So I might be very mistaken, but I always assumed that liminal was like the kind of the healthy, like the fertile void, like the uncertain, where we're held and where that transformation is possible. Whereas liminoid, I thought was like the kind of like the unhealthy void, but maybe I've crosswired those.
I don't know. In the book that I'm reading, it's not.
Okay, cool, great.
I'll send the book over to the whole
please
community.
do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Please do. Yeah, I'll have to do some research. Thank you. Thank you,
Yeah.
Franzi.
Yeah.
Appreciate the reflections. Okay, Devin, hey there.
Sorry, I had some Zoom issues. I did want to say, Maria, you had your hand up like before me. Do you want to go first? I just want to give you a chance because we're short on time.
It's up to you. It's fine.
Okay, go for it. My question's old. It's not going anywhere.
All
Okay.
right.
I just
very
had
generous.
like a couple of reflections I wanted to share. First,
Please.
like to Johnny, like the somatic dialogos. I think that's awesome. I think that's such a cool exercise and something that was really surprising to me about it. And maybe it's just because it was the first time I did it. But I felt like I almost got more interesting things from being person B than being person A. Because like being person A was an experience that, you know, though I'm sharing it with a person and that's new, it's stuff I've done before, right? Like going into my emotions, going into my sensations. But being person B, I was listening to my partner talk about hers and following along with her. And that was really, really fruitful, I feel like. So she's telling me about the sensations that she experienced in her memory. And she's saying, you know that feeling, the fluttering in your stomach. And I kind of go into myself, yes, I do. And kind of replicating the fluttering, going along with her. And that was it was really fun and really interesting. And I really wanted to thank you for that. That was dope.
Beautiful. Just briefly to reflect on that, like I love that share, and I think there's a real gift that B can have, and that's what, when we kind of do this over and over again, there's a sense of like you can tune into the aliveness, so you can reflect back when someone is speaking from the feeling and the sensation, and then when they're like in their head and in their story. And usually it's like less interesting if someone's in their head and they're just like saying the thing versus when they're like in real time sharing their experience. And you can kind of, through that like view framework, through vulnerability, impartiality, empathy, and wonder, you can really guide someone or just enable someone to go a lot deeper than they would otherwise, when they might usually kind of revert back to the mental stories.
Yeah, it was like following along with her sensations as she described them was like this extreme shortcut to being on the same page with her. Like I'm, talking to this person that I met 5 minutes ago, and I'm already like listening to her, able to stop her and say, I can tell that there's something deeper. Like she had kind of talked about the emotion, and I brought her back to the sensation just without even really thinking about it. I was like, I can see you're almost pointing to it. Is it in your chest? Like we're so in tune. And I thought that was really, really cool to be able to get there so quickly. That's a fantastic exercise. And then
it really creates connection as well, I think, as well. Like it very rapidly.
Very rapidly. It's awesome. The other reflection I had was just actually from our first breakout. The person that I was, the partner that I was working with, had said that this was really a really helpful insight. I was pointing out that when we talked about kinks in the emotional hose pipe, kind of separating out repression into two levels, because there is repression of expression where it's like, I don't want to say that for some reason. Then there's like the repression level of feeling it yourself, because you're like, I don't even want to feel that. And so the example emotion that I used was jealousy. So I was just like, so imagine that, and I went right into the thick of it. I was imagining like your partner just got a huge promotion at work, and at your work you are getting you're underappreciated, you're underpaid, like things are not going well at work, and they just got this huge promotion, and you love them and you're happy for them, but you're also just like, oh, but you're not supposed to feel that way, right? And so that's different than just like, kind of grizzling in your head about it and not saying it. And the kind of passive aggression that might come from that is there's like this deeper level of where I'm not even allowing myself to notice that emotion. And it can be, honestly, can be even more insidious and can be more intractable, because you're not even like knowing the problem. You're just feeling more impatient with them this week than usual, and you don't even know why. Pointing out that difference can be important to plumb when you're doing this kind of exploration. That there's not just the things you're not saying, but also the things you won't even let yourself think or feel.
That's beautiful. It's almost like the Jim Deathmer line of like above the line versus below the line, where the below the line things are in the subconscious and the above the line things are in the consciousness. And like once you're conscious of it, then you can, there's that invitation of like, okay, I'm going to allow myself to feel it. And then once you fully felt it, maybe then expressing it feels natural. You can do it without charge. But you're right. There is like the actual acknowledgement that like, oh, this is here and I'm allowed to feel this. This doesn't make me a bad person. Then there's the feeling it. And then if it's appropriate and feels right, then there's the expressing. So yeah, I really like that. It's like a more high definition version of the process.
Thank you. It was a
cool,
great talk with you guys. I'm gonna let
cool.
go ahead.
Thanks so much. Okay. Oh, Devin, hey.
Hey, it's actually appropriate that I was joined by my little one here, because the question I had is about a state that comes up often when I'm parenting at the end of the day, which I would describe as kind of like agitated exhaustion, where like I'm just really tired and I'm done kind of physically and emotionally, but this is my youngest of 3 and they like just have needs. They need help getting ready for bed and like I can't defer those needs. So I was trying to figure out, is it possible to be in like dorsal and sympathetic kind of overwhelmed at the same time? And if so, like, what do you do? Like, do I need to calm down? Do I need to energize? Do I need both? How do I think about that?
Yeah.
And Susie wants hello. So go ahead and
say,
say,
Susie.
Okay, we heard you. All right, thanks.
Oh, that's funny. My computer picked up Siri. Susie is Siri. Well, thank you for that question. And the short answer is yes. It's very possible to be in a state where we oscillate between sympathetic overwhelm and dorsal shutdown, and it's like a ping pong. And in some ways, the dorsal is coming in because the sympathetic doesn't like have anywhere to go. It's like there's too much charge in the system, like too much electricity, and so the dorsal's like burp, and it's like cuts it off. So I think the things that I'd say would be, to the degree possible during the day beforehand, kind of, or like in the run up to that, kind of noticing when there's like early signs of this, and to the, whatever is available in terms of having like a 5-minute lie down, or like a few breaths, or going outside and like kind of taking the horizon and like allowing that downshift to naturally happen, so that it doesn't build up to get to the point where it's like level 10, which we all do at different times, but like that's I guess like the work, that's the path. And then in terms of when like being in that state, even just like a minute or less of just like a few deep breaths can really help to just like ground. And I find particularly like lying down and breathing into my back, like feeling my hands and feeling my feet, and just like 3 breaths, just like that can be enough to then get you through whatever needs to be done. And then having a more kind of intentional like wind down routine. And also, I mean, if there's frustration or things that's happened from earlier on, like giving yourself space to actually like feel into that and maybe even express that. And because I think often that happens, it's like, I'm not a parent, but I can imagine, I mean, we have a puppy, and like sometimes there's times when it's like that frustration comes, but I don't want to like be angry there. And so, but it still gets stored. And I think that buildup is what creates that sense of like overwhelm. And so having little micro moments where you just let yourself feel or express that in a way where you're not doing it at another being, but it's like at a pillow or just into the void, that can be really helpful as well. Because often it's just like feelings that have arisen during the day that haven't had a chance to be expressed.
Thank you. That's really helpful, especially this kind of ping pong thing that fits a lot with like what I experienced. Thanks.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. Jacob, hey there.
Hey. Yeah, I just wanted to thank you for the dialogos. I thought that was a great exercise, and I wasn't expecting it to be as good as it was.
Cool.
And I think just had that relational component, feeling seen and feeling safe, allowed for this kind of release that I had, where a little bit of backstory. I'm an anesthesiologist, and I've been taking some time off work because of burnout. And I was imagining going back to work, which I'm going to do in 2 weeks, and imagining kind of being with my patient and intubating them. And I felt my body kind of like wanting to lean over, and I realized I wanted to like cover them and like protect them. But in doing that, I was also getting hit, like almost like we were in war. And then I just felt a lot of like tears come up, and I started crying, and it was like this really great release. So thank you for that exercise. Really, really useful. But very different than that, when I was doing the somatic surfing by myself, I didn't have that release. And I think part of it goes back to what other people have said about mixed emotions. I was thinking about my mom, and a lot of different emotions came up: love and, you know, sadness that someday she'll die, and annoyance at her, all these. And it's, I think somebody else brought up internal family systems, and it made me think like we all have multiple parts of us. And I wonder if all these different parts have different feelings. And I'm just curious, like when you have all of those different feelings, like sadness mixed with happiness and joy, do you have a recommendation of which feeling to sit with and prioritize? I know some people say like the feelings you give attention to are the ones that are going to grow. So I have a concern, if I pay too much attention to my sadness, am I giving it water and feeding it? So any thoughts there?
Yeah, wow. Well, thank you for sharing your experience there. And also one thing that as to why I think the dialogues are so powerful is there's something about being witnessed that I think allows us to kind of feel safer and to kind of go deeper than maybe if we're just on our own listening to audio. But in terms of your question, it's a really good one. My perspective on this is, yes, I think you're spot on in terms of sometimes there are like multiple parts arising at the same time, and they have different feelings and even different nervous system states. And like really, it's not about necessarily feeding any one of them, but welcoming them all at the same time in a way, and not even directing the experience, but just allowing your body to kind of move or express in the way that it wants to. And you know, maybe some of them might exist or live in different parts of the body, and so you could also kind of hold them both at the same time. So let's say there's, as an example, maybe there's like joy or gratitude in your chest, but then there's like sadness in your belly. Like, can you hold and expand your awareness to hold both at the same time and just be there and allow them to coexist, as Franzi was saying? And in terms of I guess it's like a bit of a folklore around feeding a certain emotion will cause it to arise more. I actually don't believe that. I think that when that's happening, what is actually happening is people are looping, like Franzi and I were saying earlier, they're looping and they're getting stuck in the story or getting stuck in the feeling without witnessing it. And so that's what causes it to perpetuate, because there's this continuous loop. Whereas if it's felt from this lens of view, from vulnerability, impartiality, empathy, and wonder, then it is able to be completed, to be integrated, to be like welcomed back into the internal family, so to speak. And that's really what these feelings, they're just wanting to be acknowledged, basically. And the order that you do it in, I don't think it really matters. You know, sometimes it can be helpful for the one thing I would actually recommend is typically people have trouble either expressing sadness and grief or expressing anger and rage. And whichever is least natural or common for you, go into that one. So go into the one that feels like it's least habitual for you, because often we'll find refuge in the expression that we feel safe in, but we'll completely avoid the other end. So I'd start with the one that you'd be most likely to ignore, or most likely to be like, oh, I'm just gonna like leave that for later. Does that make sense? Does that land?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Super helpful.
Awesome. All right. Thank you for the question. Yeah, really, really great one. Okay, we'll do Or and then finish up with Yanis.
Hey, Johnny. So actually just had this whole conversation, a nice playful session with ChatGPT. I asked him to be like a somatic experiencing practitioner,
Oh,
have
cool.
like this chat, and it was really like similar to the Dialogos, although we were missing the relational component here because it's still a chat that we need to like read. But I found that outsourcing my frontal cortex to like a system really enabled me to stay with the feelings and the sensations and not worry about what should I do next. But I'll try to share the prompts that I use, and maybe people can play with it. That's like one thing. I'm noticing that I have a lot of energy usually in my eyes when I want to keep someone far from me. And this is usually tied to some flight response, I think. But it's irrational. Like there is a dialogue. Let's say me and you just met, and there's this implicit memory. I don't know, there's sadness, there's embarrassment. It's really unrelated to the conversation. But then I still have this incapacity to like stay in a very connected conversation because something is bothering me. But I assume, how do we like work with that in life? Like, if you have any thoughts about it.
Yeah, I do. Thank you. So to reflect on the ChatGPT piece, I'm fascinated by the potential for somatic therapist chatbots, not as a replacement, because I don't think that's ever going to be possible to replace the co-regulation and presence component, but as an alternative for people that otherwise wouldn't have the budget or the accessibility for a great in-person therapist. I know that a friend of mine is making a chatbot based on Joe Hudson's work, based on his years of scripts, and it's already had some amazing kind of success with that. So I'm actually extremely, I guess, optimistic and bullish on that technology. And then with regards to your question, so the frame that I think I'd offer is, and this really applies a lot more broadly as well, is the thing that you're responding to, in this case, like another person, like a new conversation, like your reaction is often not going to be rational, because your body is it's reminding your system of something that happened previously, that something happened in the past, and your body's like, okay, like this doesn't feel safe, or this, I need to act in this way. And this is basically this is the work of relieving emotional debt. This is the work of like clearing our system of all of these, maybe tens, hundreds of moments where we weren't able to fully feel something. It was stored in our nervous system, and these experiences in life are basically reminding us of that. They are like having an intimate relationship is like a fast track to these things arising. And you're not like, if I'm triggered, I'm not responding really to the thing that Kelly said. It's because what she said reminded me of something that happened in my past, which is then an opportunity to actually fully feel it and complete it and integrate it. So I'm no longer triggered by it in the future. So in a way, it's like a gift when this happens. At least that's how I choose to view it. So it's less about, is the response, like if it's not a rational response, that's an indicator that, hey, there's something here that's surfacing that is really auditioning to be felt. It's like, hey, like I want to be seen, like there's something here, and that's just an invitation to kind of, if you can, sit with that, be with that, breathe into that, just like allow it to shift. Don't try and fix it or change it, but just like welcoming it into your experience.
Yeah, I agree. I will have to like disengage from like the meeting.
Yeah,
I feel this is like my ego many times, that wants to stay there, needs to stay there,
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean it's in some ways it's like it can be a vulnerable thing to say, like, hey, I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed, I just need to step away for a few minutes. Like nothing against you, I'm feeling this thing, I need to take some time for myself. And like 99% of people, I think, would really respect that if it's kind of shared in that way. But like you say, it is sometimes it can be like, oh, I'm just gonna like push these things down and stay with the conversation, but that may not be serving you in the long run.
For sure.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, John. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Great questions. Okay, Yanis, and then we'll do Steve as the last question.
Okay, first of all, I was really excited to hear about the chatbot. So is it actually operational or is it in development?
Joachim has created it. He's used it on himself, and I believe he's testing it with a handful of people.
So how can we access it?
I don't know. I can give you Joachim's details and you can reach out to him. It's not public.
Yeah. Okay, I would love that. I have found tremendous value, like using ChatGPT as a CBT therapist. It's like an interactive journal. I mean, I say, okay, you're the best CBT therapist. Like, untwist my thoughts, and it's really fucking amazing. I mean, it works like a charm.
Nice. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
If you'd be open to sharing some of your prompts in the group, I think that could be really helpful. Like a way to set up the conversation to allow it to be productive.
Yeah, for sure. So my question is this: yesterday I concluded the mastermind with Aziz, and so it's been a 2-year journey. And I got really emotional yesterday. I think there's a lot of grief that's coming up, but a part of me is not willing to feel it. And historically, I don't have a good relationship with grief, even though I've been much more emotionally fluid in the as time progresses. And I'm not into breath work, so I'm wondering how do you have any ideas how to go on processing it and how to allow for more grief to enter? Because it's like I'm doing stuff and I don't want to stop to experience the grief, to give it the space it wants.
Yeah. I mean, there's some, I'll start by just mentioning a few beautiful books on grief that I think really, for me, unlocked its beauty, and that helped me to kind of see its importance. There's a book by Francis Weller. That's the name is The Wild Edge of Sorrow is the name of the book. That, and also Martin Prachtel, The Smell of Rain on Dust. Those two books just helped me to appreciate the absolute gorgeous beauty of grief and how just like generative and essential and life-giving it is. And I think that is maybe like a helpful context. And from there, I mean, you just kind of said it. You said the words, I'm unwilling, I don't want to give myself space to feel this. So I think the first step is giving yourself the space to feel this. And with all emotions, but with grief in particular, like my experience of it is that it really resists being controlled in any way. It's like tsunami waves that come, and when they come, all you can do is just surrender. All you can do is just let go. All you can do is just like, I have this image of like having like palms out, just like, I am willing, just like take me, and you will be hit by it. And it's this tsunami force, which if at times it can be so intense that it feels like you're going to die. And all you can do is just stand there and say, I am willing, and trust that on the other side, you will not only be alive, but you will feel this deep sense of connection and nourishment, which I count among my most I'm feeling emotion just thinking about it right now. My most powerful experiences in my life have been through that grief. And so really it's accepting a profound, powerful, and brutal gift.
What a great way to reframe it. And have you experienced that transformation only with breath work, or is it possible like also, I mean, I have processed just to stay in the emotion and all that, but I have a lot of conscious defenses to not fully let go.
In the beginning, there was no breath work involved. Like my sense from knowing you, Yanis, is that the maybe, I'm just guessing here, there may be a tendency to try and control the emotional process and do grief. Whereas grief is not something that you can do. It's not a process that you can control. It's purely something which is done to you, and you can just like receive. Like it's really is this like deep surrender, is the best way that I can describe it. Music can certainly be helpful. I can share a playlist in the chat that lying down and listening to this music can sometimes like get the energy moving in some way. But once it's moving, it's really a case of just allowing. I'll share the playlist in the chat as well.
Awesome. And if you can share the titles of the book as well, of the books.
Yes, The Smell of Rain on Dust. And that audiobook is actually particularly good. And The Wild Edge of Sorrow by Francis Weller. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward for the chatbot, the Jonah details.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Thank you, Yanis. Appreciate it. Okay, Steve.
Thank you. Yeah, you know, I think I partially answered my own question, but I'll share with my question. I was just like not really sure how to handle it when I'm down, right? You know, because when I'm down, like if I'm angry, you know, I at least have energy, right? You know, to go and try to solve whatever the problem is I'm facing. But if I'm down, I don't have energy, right? You know, and I don't really feel like doing anything. I trudge through, you know, I'll trudge through things, but yeah, I don't really have energy. But from learning about, I guess, so that means my dorsal vagal is depressed, right? I basically need to pump up something in my sympathetic. But sometimes it's not so easy to do. I mean, I even work out every morning almost. And even, you know, sometimes, yeah, I find it challenging to do, you know, because I would say, well, go out for a walk, but I've got this inflammatory problem with my leg right now that I can't really do weight bearing activities. And so that's really, you know, I mean, that's a major reason why I feel so down is I'm kind of stuck inside except for going out swimming. And so anyway, so yeah, just kind of wondering if you have any other advice about that, you know, like maybe how to get my sympathetic going in a positive way. Yeah.
Yeah, great question. Thank you. A couple of things come to mind. Like one, there can also be like a real wisdom to the dorsal state. I think often we feel like discomfort when we're in that like exhausted place, but sometimes the medicine is actually the rest. It's like okay, this is what my body's telling me. I'm just going to take this time and remove as many expectations on my time and energy as possible and allow the body to kind of recover and to recharge, because sometimes that is what's necessary. Sometimes it's, you know, like months or even years of sympathetic time. It's like, okay, like the body's it's going to take its time to rest. And there's a real wisdom in that sometimes. There's a beautiful passage in David White's book Consolations that's on rest. I can maybe share it here, but it's really kind of,
that'd be great to see. Yeah.
It's really feeling the necessary beauty of rest as a cyclical kind of phase in the nervous system. And so I think that's the first piece. And maybe also like exploring what thoughts or stories are arising when you're in that place of like lack of energy, and you know, exploring like, are they true, and can you like, is there more compassion that you can give to yourself? And you know, I speaking from my experience, times when I'm feeling sick, when like I want to be doing work and these other things, I used to like beat myself up because I'm like, well, I want to be productive and do all these things, but actually it was like, no, my body's just recovering right now. Like the best thing I can be doing with my time is to let my body recover. That's just like it kind of a lot of this work comes back to trusting the wisdom of the body in many ways. So that's what I'd offer, knowing that, you know, there are certain times when rest is logistically unavailable, and in those times we just have to do the best that we can.
Okay. Yeah, if you have that you know, you were mentioning some work about rest, I would be very interested to.
Oh, it's right here. Look at that.
Okay.
Let me one, and then Or if you want to share your final question, I'm just going to copy these into the screenshot. Okay, here we go.
Awesome.
There we go. All right. Okay, beautiful. That's
Awesome.
from
Thank
David
you.
White's book, Consolation. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Johnny.
All right, this is the absolute last question from Yanis.
Thank you for being so patient.
We're gonna go.
Yeah.
Okay. Yanis, you have your hand raised.
No, it stayed raised.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, in that case, the session is complete. Thank you so much, everyone. All
Awesome.
16 of you who've stayed on. Yeah, this was really fun.
Thank
Really
you.
appreciate the
Thank you.
questions.
All
For
right.
sharing.
Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Such a great group. All right. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have
Ciao.
a great weekend.
You.